Hello, welcome back to Sapling Tarot. My name is Imogen. Today we're going to be talking about maybe a little bit of a tricky subject, but I think it's something that's worth opening up some kind of discussion around. I want to talk to you today about where shame can pop up in a tarot practice. Now, like I say, this isn't necessarily going to be a super comfortable conversation, but I hope you will bear with me. While I chat to you, I'm going to be painting some more of these little tarot bags that you might recognise from previous videos. They're not they're not perfect, they're not necessarily beautiful, but they'll help me distinguish which deck is in them. So yeah, this video is in part inspired by, it's been on my list to film for ages, and then Isha the Activist Witch did a video about witchcraft and shame through a particular lens of worrying about being openly witchy and having a kind of alternative spiritual practice, and worrying that that would discredit their other skills and expertise, and maybe even discredit the expertise of the people around them, which is something that I do want to touch on in a bit. And so yeah, that kind of spurred me on to get this video out of my video ideas folder and kind of into some sort of reality. It's also partly inspired by a video that Kelly Bear did, probably like a year ago, about tarot reader confessions, and some of the things that Kelly touched on are going to pop up in this video as well. Yeah, so I didn't want to not mention those two people, and I'm going to tag their videos below. There's also bits that cropped up in the Occult Tea tag, which spurred on some really brilliant VRs, and so I highly recommend you go and check those out. That introduced me to a whole bunch of really great creators. If you are in any way interested in the kind of witchy side of YouTube, I can't recommend it highly enough. And also I did a VR to Lennon Smith's 78 Things to Live For, like tarot associations video, and yeah, that's some stuff that I mentioned in that I'm going to be revisiting in today's video. So now that that's like a big waffly introduction out of the way, let's get into the shame of it all. I'm not just going to be talking about like where it can crop up, I am also going to be offering strategies. I probably should have said that from the top. Strategies for dealing with it both on an individual level and like collectively. So it's not going to be all doom and gloom, I promise. The first thing that I want to touch on is part of what Isha talked about in terms of this broader societal implication that participating in anything that's sort of adjacent to an alternative spiritual practice, which, like it or not, no matter how you in particular practice tarot, that's how it is seen by broader society. That is changing slowly, but broadly speaking, that's kind of where it sits. And there's something that kind of broader society deems as kind of unserious, or dare I even say like unintelligent, about practicing something that isn't like, I don't know, rigorously scientific. And so there can be a bit of shame that crops up there. But I also think that how that shame can manifest is in like the distancing from ourselves from the more kind of like woo and spiritual side of tarot. This is definitely something I've done. I've definitely had parts of my life, particularly when I was a teenager, of being a bit kind of not like other tarot readers, not like other girls kind of energy, in that sort of defensive, getting out ahead of the criticism and like criticising either yourself or the practice in general before someone else can discredit you or like lump you in with the things that they are against. And so I think that this is like a fairly natural thing to do, but I want to talk about like the implications of that. First and foremost, that by discrediting what are deemed kind of like alternative spiritual beliefs, and that includes like the fortune tellers and the psychics and the mystics and stuff like that, we are inherently like perpetuating our own marginalisation, and also we're perpetuating colonial standards of what is worthwhile, I guess. And so by like, we're effectively perpetuating the systemic oppression and erasure of marginalised voices and communities and cultures and histories. And I'm not saying that you have to like be a psychic or be a super like predictive reader or something. I'm just saying that if we, in order to make our like push ourselves up higher in other people's estimations, we push other people down. That's not like, I don't know, it's not like the best thing for us to do. And I'm saying this as someone who has done this, and this is something that I've had to kind of like, I don't know, figure out in myself and work through. Do you know what? Through tarot. And about how like, why am I discrediting people who share an interest that has brought so much to my life? My issue has to be with the people who would delegitimize this practice, not with other practitioners. So I think that's somewhere where we feel kind of othered or marginalised even by this practice. I think there can be the urge to make ourselves seem like, one of the good ones. And that happens in all sorts of marginalisations, being the good gay or the good, I don't know, the productive disabled person or the inspirational disabled person or any of that kind of stuff. And so I think that this is a way that the shame and the internalised stigma can manifest that can be damaging both to ourselves, because we hear ourselves say these things, but also to the community at large. And also by distancing ourselves in this way from our community, we lessen the likelihood, if that's a way to phrase that, of building community. And it can be really isolating. So the strategies that I have for managing this, because like I said, these are thoughts and feelings and things that I have said, sometimes not even that long ago, because I get kind of fidgety and defensive about my like chosen path in life, as I'm sure we all do to a point. Or maybe no one doesn't, this is just me outing myself as being a dick. But one of the first strategies I think is to like, if you can in that moment, to stop and think about these like thoughts or urges or defensive feelings and think about where it's coming from. Is it the person that you're with? Are you preempting them? Can you maybe give them a little bit more credit for being open-minded? And actually be honest about your practice. And like, can you like feel your way through where that's coming from? The other side of this is also like that isolation of, if you are the only person in your IRL life who is interested in this kind of stuff, then it can just be really lonely for everyone to think that it's, stupid or unserious, or I don't know, worse, some people think that it's like I don't know, some terrible thing to be interested in, or satanic, or fuck knows, I don't know, any of that kind of nonsense. And so if that's how you're feeling and that's why you end up being kind of defensive and trying to like rationalise your practice, then I really recommend reaching out to people online. There was a tag that went around fairly recently, the Let's Be Tarot Friends tag, and there's so many of us. We're all just big nerds. We're all pretty friendly, and all just thrilled to talk to people about tarot like all the time. So leave a comment on a video, you know, even like slide into someone's DMs to open up a conversation. You know, don't be offended if they can't get back to you. I know it's really scary to reach out in those kinds of ways, but I mean, even just in the 6 months that I've been making YouTube videos and the, you know, couple of years that I've been consuming TarotTube content and sort of becoming more like present in the tarot community online, oh my god, I feel so much better about so much of my life. Not even just like tarot related, it's just such a gorgeous little community. And so I really recommend reaching out. If you want to talk about tarot, come and talk to me. I'm a bit shit with getting back to messages, but I will get back to you eventually. I'm usually pretty good with like comments and stuff because I'm still a teeny small channel. And you know, let's fucking talk about tarot and, you know, whatever adjacent weirdy things you like. You know, I quite like a bit of astrology. I love a bit of herbalism. Those are probably my two main like tarot adjacent interests. I mean, folklore, please, if you come from somewhere other than where I come from, tell me the folklore. Tell me about your food. Above all, tell me about your food. You know, I'd be thrilled to hear from any of you about stuff like that. Like I say, I'm a much more like snail mail pace of a person, but yeah, always happy to talk tarot. Another strategy that I have for these feelings is to do like a good thought experiment with yourself. So if you are more on the kind of like, I don't know, rational, psychological, scientific self-reflection side of tarot, I challenge you to do a reading and suspend disbelief and believe whatever you want. Believe that you can talk to your ancestors or commune with spirit or, you know, the universe or see the future. Just like imagine for a moment, for one reading, that you can do that and just see how it goes. I'm not saying you have to change your practice forever. This is just one reading. I'm also not saying you have to change your mind, but like just consider alternative viewpoints. I also recommend that if you're the kind of reader who only really reads to commune with spirit or ancestors or deity or to predict the future and stuff, I recommend going a little bit more low-key just for a reading and thinking about on like a personal level, kind of a self-reflection, kind of psychological, borderline like be your own kind of therapist sort of thing. I recommend doing that just for a reading. Again, I'm not saying you have to change your whole practice or even saying you have to change your mind, but I think part of the beauty of this community is the different perspectives. And so to just consider for one reading doing something a bit different can only improve your practice. It's like, you know, if you're purely a by the book reader, give it a go at reading purely intuitively. Try and let all of the book meanings go. And if you're a purely intuitive reader, try flicking open a guidebook. Try seeing how that gels with your intuition. I think there's so many ways to do tarot and they're all like equally valid. And I just think it's really exciting to consider different ways of doing things. But maybe that's just my inner nerd jumping out. And then like particularly if you're of the more kind of like psychological, scientific, self-reflective type of reader, I really recommend you like look into cartomancy from around the world, and like other divinatory methods. Again, I'm not saying you have to change your mind or change your practice or believe in any of it, but like just having a little bit more context about how different cultures and different people through different periods of time do these things, I think it's just really cool, and it will expand your practice whether you believe it or not. So yeah, just curiosity, I think, is the way to combat these feelings, and community above all. Somehow all of these have ended up beginning with C, so I apologise for things feeling a little bit repetitive. Maybe the next one that I want to talk about, like where shame can crop up, is comparison. And this was something that came up in the occulty tag, was, feelings of FOMO and comparing your practice to other people's practice and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that particularly with social media, but I think if we were in an IRL community with people, we'd probably do the same thing. I think it's sort of just how we function. And if you were going to a club to do tarot readings or whatever, you'd probably take your like prettiest deck and your tidiest tarot journal, and probably make out that you'd maybe read more books than you actually have, or that you'd been practicing more than you actually had been, and stuff. And we get the curated view of people's lives, and that's kind of why I'm like trying to be as authentic as possible here. And that's absolutely not saying that any other like people on TarotTube aren't being authentic. It's just that like a challenge for myself to be truthful about the fact that like sometimes I go for weeks without touching a tarot deck. Sometimes I still have to check book meanings, or if I'm using a new kind of like creative sort of deck, I'll Google what the RWS card looks like, or a classic Marseille, or I forgot this word last time as well, didn't I? Configuration of pips. And like, there are lots of people who would probably be like, oh, fraud, not a real tarot reader, I can't believe you do that, and you charge people money for readings and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a good tarot reader. I'm also a disabled tarot reader. Like I believe that I offer value in my professional tarot readings when I'm reading for myself. Sometimes that entirely goes out the fucking window. So like I also think that like capitalism and like toxic productivity culture and like hustle culture and stuff has permeated our hobbies in like quite a insidious way, where we feel like we always need to be like improving and doing better and being more and things being perfect all the time. And oh my god, that can just be so exhausting and overwhelming, and if you're anything like me, a huge obstacle to actually doing the fucking thing. I think this was like some of the things that came up in Kelly's video about like tarot confessions, about like not finishing workbooks or taking ages to finish a workbook. And there was the real tarot reader thing about what makes a real tarot reader. And I'm truly of the belief, and I know that some people don't believe this, and that's fine, but I'm truly of the belief that if you read tarot like ever, you're a tarot reader. Like if you ever make art, you are an artist. If you ever sing in the shower, you are a singer. Like I think, yeah, no matter how slapdash or perfect your practice is, whether it's exactly how you want it to be or you wish it were different, I think you're a tarot reader and that you deserve space in this community. and to feel good about your practice. I think like sometimes with like strategies for dealing with these difficult feelings, I think remembering that it's supposed to be fun, like remembering that this is a hobby, this isn't a chore, it's not an obligation or something, like an expectation or something, like this is something that you do for you mostly. Like I think that's something that like helps snap me back into being like, this is supposed to be fun. If I'm not having fun, then like don't do it unless I'm, you know, working. But do you see what I mean? Like trying to remember what it was that originally grabbed you about tarot and like about the community and stuff like that, and thinking about which bits of it actually bring you joy, and then fucking sack off all the rest of it. You don't need it. If astrology doesn't float your boat, ignore it. Like if, you know, you don't want to learn Smithwaite or Marseille or Thoth or, you know, the Tree of Life or whatever, if you want one deck or 1,000 decks, like just do your thing. And I know that that's way easier said than done, but I really believe that like your practice is valuable and your perspective is valuable, and I want you to be able to do whatever it is that actually, you know, enhances your life. That's what this is supposed to be about. And then when comparison does strike, as it inevitably does, again, I think it's about like approaching it with curiosity and going, okay, so I've seen this thing and it's making me feel X emotion, shame, shit about myself, however you want to frame it. Like I need to be doing better or doing more, or, you know, I need fucking better handwriting or a prettier journal, or I need to be reading every day, multiple times a day, and have like a whole ritual to go with it and stuff. Then I think it's about, again, approaching it with like a curiosity and going, okay, so this thing that's making me feel bad feelings, think about it in terms of appreciation. I think that looks really cool. I think that person is doing a really like bang up job. I think that's really gorgeous. Drop them a nice comment. It is free and it will, I guarantee you, make you feel immediately better. The second thing is to think about like, how would you implement this? I've just realised that my mic hasn't been on the whole time I've been talking. Great. So I apologise for the audio quality for the first, or fuck knows how long of this video. I hope that this is a little bit better. Good. I'm sure other tarot tubers don't forget to turn their fucking mic on. I absolutely know that they do. And also, fuck it, it's fine. You're here, I'm here, we're having a nice little chat. Hopefully the content of what I'm saying is more valuable than slightly patchy audio quality. What was I saying? Yeah, okay, so you see the thing that makes you feel the tricky feelings, and then you go, what, like one small thing of this could I implement? Is it, I really love what that person's done with watercolours. Could I maybe go out and buy like a cheap watercolour set and have a bit of a play myself? Is it that I like what they said about doing tarot in the evening? Is that something that you could try? You know, it's not about setting huge, great expectations and like massive challenges for yourself. It's about like approaching these things with just like some kind of gentle curiosity and like a spirit of experimentation, and just like see how it works for you. There's also so many like neurodivergent and disabled people in our community. I think that like the internalized ableism of I should be able to do XYZ. I think we all need to be like mindful of those feelings, because they're just not helpful. This is supposed to be fun. And so, you know, if you really struggle with like developing habits, or remembering to do things, or I don't know, there's all sorts of things that, you know, can get in the way of that like dream tarot practice. And like I said in one of my more recent videos, it's the aspirational tarot tag. Your practice is your practice. That's all that matters. It just has to be like what works for you. And I understand wanting to change it because, you know, you saw someone else do a thing and you've been inspired. But as long as it's from that kind of appreciative, inspirational place rather than, oh, I'm a piece of shit, my tarot practice is a piece of shit, doing things out of like guilt and shame. Because, I mean, what's the fucking point? Quite frankly. And again, you can use tarot to work through these feelings as well. I've got some like tarot spreads that I'm going to try and remember to talk about at the end. And if that escapes me, because my brain is at the moment a little bit of a piece of shit, I will draw them up and put them on like, I don't know, it's like Instagram or something. It'll be linked below. But hopefully I'll remember. My next C is consumption. And I think this might be the place where shame pops up the most for the most people. Is like spending and buying and accumulating stuff. Consumerism and capitalism are everywhere in, you know, year of our Lord 2024. And tarot is no exception. So give yourself a bit of a break. Everywhere you look, there are decks to buy, courses to take, trinkets to collect, Kickstarters to fund, all sorts of stuff. The irony is not lost on me, by the way, that while I was like writing the script for this video, I did put up at least one video about tarot decks that I was influenced to buy from other creators. So yeah, so I'm here with you. I'm not setting myself like above anything. I'm right here with you, feeling these feelings, managing this stuff every day. So the constant pursuit of like the new deck, and this can be really hard for, again, like the neurodivergent among us, particularly those of us with brain types that do the kind of like hyperfixation or like special interest thing. The desire to kind of collect and learn a new system, a new way of looking at things, collect the artwork, all that kind of stuff. Like it's a really hard thing to balance, because then that can tip from the kind of the FOMO on one side of wanting the things and like maybe not being able to afford them. I know there's a lot of broke witches out here, and, you know, tarot readers and stuff, but then also that can tip over into the other side of it, which is feeling guilty and like shameful about collecting tarot decks. And I remember Tarot Shrink made a really good point in one of her videos about how someone comes into your house and sees like a wall of bookshelves and no one is going to judge you, but someone came in and saw like a wall of tarot decks. Would you feel like you had to kind of like keep them hidden away? And I thought that was really great. Although I did once have a landlord who came into our house and saw how many books we had and complained that it was a fire hazard. So some people also don't like books. And, you know, that is fine, I guess. Not very relatable, but I guess, you know, whatever makes you happy. And if having a tidy house makes you happier than owning a shit ton of books, then it couldn't be me. But I hope, you know, you have a different thing that brings you joy, like having a tidy house. Fucking side quest, tangent, squirrel brain, I apologise. Yeah, it can get you into financial trouble, and then you can feel shit about money. So you can feel shit about not having things, feel shit about having things, and just kind of yo-yo and oscillate between the two. And I mean, it's just not an ideal scenario for anyone, really, is it? So my strategies for slowing down and changing habits and kind of reclaiming effectively like our agency, because I think that like we can just get a bit like swept away in the like consumption cycle, not tuberculosis, like purchasing, collecting thing. And so I think we can feel a bit like a runaway train quite often, just like buying and buying and accumulating and accumulating. And I don't think that feels super great for most people. I mean, if that feels good for you, if you know, just accumulating all of the decks works for you, then like, fucking more power to you. But these are my strategies. So like, I hate to be that guy, but like boundaries and budgets. You know yourself. You know how much money you can reasonably afford to spend on tarot decks, how much space you have in your house to store tarot decks. Setting yourself like little challenges, so not being like kind of, oh, I have to do this thing and like it's a chore of, you know, I'm not allowed to buy any more tarot decks, or I don't know, I'm a piece of shit if I buy a new tarot deck or whatever. Like, I think reframing it as a challenge to yourself is always helpful. And, you know, if you're a person who needs to go fully cold turkey and completely stop buying, then do that. If you're someone who benefits more from a kind of baby steps approach, like I'm going to buy one deck a month, or I'm going to put things on a wish list and come back to them in a month's time, and if I still want them, then I'll buy them. That kind of, you know, wish list and wait way of looking at things. You know, I'm only going to do like kind of a one in, one out system. You know yourself, and all of these things framed like a kind of a fun challenge can be like an easier way to do it. But then also, even if we're still buying stuff, we can also be like discerning consumers and try to choose to support like small, independent, ethical creators that align with our values, you know, where we can, as and when we can like afford to, and stuff. And then like that can also combat my notes are so wanky. This can also help combat the homogenizing effect of capitalism within tarot culture. But like, you know, when like everyone's collection ends up looking the same and all tarot decks end up kind of looking the same and stuff. So like by looking to the small and the indie and doing the research and stuff, we can have, you know, more like fun, unique stuff, and everyone loves a bit of that. So yeah, and then there's also the good old like shop my stash thing, which I think is a good like effectively like a gratitude practice of appreciating what you already have and like reinvigorating the sort of fun fuzzy feelings of getting new stuff and kind of remembering why you own the things that you have in the first place. So like getting everything out and reorganizing and kind of rediscovering old favorites and thinking about the things that you want to buy, and do you have something that sort of already fills that purpose, and all of those sorts of like little challenges. You know, a month with no Amazon if you're in a country that has, you know, Amazon making everything unbelievably available all of the time. You know, just taking things at a slower pace, I think would help all of us. And so then, like my final point is that the opposite of shame is essentially self-acceptance, self-worth, self-compassion. This is like how we combat shame, like on a broader scale. And tarot can help do that. It can create a space where we can ask ourselves these questions and interrogate these feelings and kind of get a sense of our emotional landscape, you know. We can like, you know, help develop our emotional balance and resilience and stuff like that, so that we don't end up just buying shitty tarot decks because we're feeling a bit, you know, empty inside and stuff, which is also fine. You know, there are way worse coping strategies. The world is on fire. I'm not having a go, I promise. I'm also not above doing that. I'll have a difficult therapy session and I'll be like, right, find me a £15 tarot deck that I can buy so I can get those like yummy endorphins. But yeah, so like using tarot as a way to cultivate self-compassion and resilience and like emotional regulation skills and all of that kind of stuff is really valuable. I talked about self-care in Tuesday's video, so the video that went up just before this one, and like self-care looks completely different for lots of people. The things that help us develop resilience and emotional, you know, help us emotionally regulate and stuff look completely different for everyone. What could be really useful for one person could be downright fucking traumatizing to another person. I'm thinking of like tough love kind of things. But like simple practices like doing like regular card pulls. Yeah, I'm not saying daily, I'm not saying I fucking couldn't say daily, that would be deeply hypocritical of me. And journaling and stuff. Like I know that it's really, I don't know, probably almost like overdone at this point to suggest these things. Like, oh, if you tried a bit of yoga or, you know, writing a journal or meditating or something. Unfortunately, they can be useful for a lot of people. If you tried them and they don't work for you, absolutely fine. But like incorporating your mindfulness or your meditation into and like breath work into your tarot practice can help you navigate trickier subjects. And I think shame is a really tricky topic for a lot of people. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. Most of us would rather just kind of ignore it and like push past it rather than like through it. And like above all, with like all of these things that I'm suggesting, try not to do like big comparisons or big expectations of yourself. There's a phrase that a therapist I used to use a lot, which is to hold things lightly. And it's something that I come back to time and time again. Try not to put too much weight on yourself or on these things. Do them if they work for you and if they feel good. You don't need to like pressure yourself into doing it. And I can't remember who said it, but I'll try and remember to put the graphic on screen. You can't really shame yourself into being a better person. So I hope that like talking about these things has maybe helped, or you know, at the very least made you feel like not alone. And if you don't feel these things, then that's great. I'm talking about these things as if they're like completely universal, and maybe it's just me. I'd be really interested to know how you navigate difficult feelings that kind of come up in your tarot practice or like through like navigating tarot community and stuff. So please do let me know. So yeah, please let me know your thoughts, feelings, your deepest desires. If you enjoyed this, you could like the video. You could even maybe subscribe. That would be super duper cool. I hope you're taking really good care of yourself, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.